All that glitters is not gold. Have you ever lived a moment so beautiful, you thought nothing else mattered? There are moments in life when everything just glows. Not the type of success that looks shiny on magazine covers. Not the happiness people frame on their wedding walls. But a quiet, deep kind of completeness. The kind that makes you think, if time stopped here, I'd be okay. I once lived a moment like that. It didn't last forever. But while I was in it, I truly believed I had reached the safest, most peaceful place of my life. At that time, Sophia and I had gone public with our relationship. We became the couple everyone in the startup world admired. The media called us the golden duo, brains and beauty, coder and strategist. The articles praised our synergy, calling it rare, magnetic, unstoppable. But for me, the real comfort came not from the press or the praise, but from the quiet moments. Like when Sophia would sit beside me in her nightgown, still smelling faintly of lavender shampoo, flipping through my half-finished slides and whispering, "This part cuts straight to the point. They need to see the real you." It felt like something I'd long dreamed of but never dared believe could exist. Someone who didn't chase, didn't perform, didn't pretend. She simply stayed. She understood. She walked beside me. I once wrote in my old journals, back when I was just a kid who loved programming and scribbling philosophy, "No one will ever be able to handle me. Too intense, too obsessive, too lost in books and theories." But now, there was someone who didn't just handle that part of me. She belonged to that world too. We worked like there was no tomorrow. She shared my vision, challenged my blind spots, stretched my thinking. We met investors by day, dined or cooked together by night. Each moment was a note in a quiet symphony, nothing extravagant, just deeply real. Before her, I lived in a brilliant loneliness. The kind of loneliness people admire from afar. Photo shoots, rooftop parties, million-dollar milestones. But with Sophia, I finally understood what it meant to have someone truly there. No need to explain. Just turn your head and find her beside you. They call that feeling peace for a reason. Because it makes you drop every armor you once wore to survive. One fall evening in 1985, Sophia and I stood on the balcony of my Austin penthouse. The breeze was soft. The city lights sparkled below. She held a glass of red wine. I just stood there quietly, looking down at the streets where I once hustled. Neither of us spoke for minutes. Then she placed a hand on my shoulder and asked, "If it all stopped now, would you feel complete?" I nodded slowly. She smiled. "And then what?" I replied, "I'd put everything away except you." I meant that, not in a movie romantic way, but in the kind of truth that only lives in stillness. Because at that moment, I truly believed that everything I had chased, fame, fortune, legacy, was just a way to arrive here, to be seen, to be understood, to stop running. I didn't know, perhaps I didn't want to know, that behind the most beautiful moments, there sometimes lies a price no one ever warned you about, a price no fairy tale ever mentions. Someone who believed that with the right person, nothing was impossible. For most of my life, I believed greatness came from solitude, from effort, from endurance, from grit, from being the only one who saw the vision, fought for it, and carried it through. Then came Sophia. and I slowly realized some things only come alive when you're not walking alone. We weren't the kind of couple who strolled through parks or posted matching selfies. What we had was a partnership, a quiet kind of alignment. Not in every opinion, but in direction. She didn't need gifts or surprises. What Sophia wanted was to sit beside me at night, open her notebook, and go through every slide before a pitch. This partn't say optimized it as vague. This model, you haven't explained how it works yet. And this slide, are you sure this is the right direction? She was sharp, relentless, detail-oriented. The way she wrote in her leather notebook precise lines, deliberate marks reminded me of scientists, not business consultants. I once asked, "Where'd you learn all this?" She smiled, "From the mistakes no one talks about." At that moment, a thought quietly settled in my chest. If anyone's going to make it to the end of this road with me, it's her. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. Didn't feel like I had to brace against everything. Having someone who truly understands is the rarest warmth I've ever known. Whenever I looked at Sophia on her tailored workwear, that sharp gaze softened by kindness, I didn't just see beauty. I saw someone who made me believe in intellectual companionship. People say, the right person makes you better. But with her, I didn't just improve, I dreamed bigger. Limits I had once drawn for myself began to blur. I started thinking about going global, about taking the company public, about building a security empire that could reshape the industry. Not because I overestimated myself, but because I knew if she was with me, nothing felt out of reach. We worked like co-founders, like friends, like two hearts writing the same dream in different scripts. She never gave hollow praise, but whenever I hit a small milestone, she'd look at me and simply say, "You did it just like I knew you would." That one sentence erased all the fatigue. I used to think I was strong, but loving her taught me, you don't need strength to stand alone. You need courage to believe someone truly wants to stand beside you. Courage to drop the armor. Courage to believe that love isn't something to conquer, but something that stays when you live truthfully. Sophia made me believe that. So deeply, I stopped preparing for a world without her. Because with the right person, every question felt answered. The moment you believe you're truly seen. I used to stay cautious, even in my happiest moments. That's the instinct of someone who grew up poor, who's seen betrayal, who's watched everything collapse overnight. Even when I laughed, part of me whispered, maybe behind this smile there's a trap. But then came the trip to France. And it wasn't the charm of Paris or the luxury of Monaco that changed me. It was how Sophia planned everything. No show, no spotlight, just this quiet sense of, I see who you are, and I know what makes you happy. For my 26th birthday, she simply said, "Pack your passport. I'm not telling you anything else." 3 days later, we landed at Charles de Gaulle. It was gently raining. Paris smelled like wet stone and croissants. And I smiled like a kid. She didn't drag me to the tourist traps. She booked us into a small boutique hotel in Montmartre. Top floor attic suite, ivy-draped balcony, jazz playing softly each morning. My favorite tea on the nightstand. No, look what I did for you. Speeches. She just did it. Let me notice on my own. Then we went to Monaco. A small private yacht, nothing flashy. just warm and elegant. That evening, with the Mediterranean breeze brushing past us, Sophia went down to the little kitchen. No cameras, no assistants. She cooked dinner herself. Creamy mushroom pasta, warm baguettes with herb butter, white wine in crystal glasses. We ate under candlelight, silent for the first 10 minutes. Then she looked at me and tilted her head. "Do you ever think I'm doing too much?" I laughed. "No," I said. "You're doing it just right." I doubted every beautiful thing before her, but that night, I let all my walls drop. There was a moment, just 1 second, when I thought, she knows who I am, and she stayed. She knew I had failed. She knew I was proud. She knew I wasn't the easiest man to be around. And still, she chose to be there, cooking, looking at me like I was the most important thing in the world. No one had ever made me feel like that. Not because of the romance, but because of the realness. She wasn't trying to impress me. She just was. And in her being, I felt completely accepted. That night, I placed my hand on the table, looked at Sophia, and said, "I think this is the first time in my life I believe someone loves me. Not for my name, not for my money, but for me." She didn't respond. She just poured me another glass of wine, raised hers, and smiled. We didn't talk about the future, didn't make promises, but in her eyes, I knew I would follow her anywhere, because in a few short days, this woman had done something no one else ever had. Made me believe I didn't have to earn love. Just be honest and show up. The most beautiful moments are when we drop our guard. I used to think danger came from distraction or from trusting the wrong strangers. But no, the real danger sneaks in when you feel seen, loved, and believe there's no need for caution anymore. That afternoon on the yacht, I said something I've never forgotten. "I have nothing left to hide from you." It wasn't just a confession. It was a declaration. You are now the one I trust beyond reason. Sophia didn't gasp. She didn't promise anything in return. She just smiled, poured more wine, and clinked glasses. No performance, no gratitude. Just quiet certainty, as if she already knew. I once read, "Truth is clearest not in what people say, but in how they don't react." And her calm silence didn't make me wary. It made me trust her even more. That evening, I told her everything. The software I was building, the ideas I hadn't told anyone, the failures I still carried, the dreams still waiting, even the fears I didn't let my closest friends see. No filters, no edits, no masks. It wasn't calculated, it was real. A soft, naive surrender. Finally, I'm no longer alone in my dream. What shocked me wasn't that Sophia received it all, but how she responded. No judgment, no shallow praise, no unsolicited advice. She just took a few notes, asked 2 or 3 questions sharp and precise, then said, with echo, "If you pivot toward modular decentralization, you'll reduce your exposure to backdoor vulnerabilities." I froze. I had never said that to anyone, not even to my top developers. She knew and understood in a way that made me think, maybe she sees me more clearly than I see myself. Not because she read my mind, but because I opened every door willingly and wasn't afraid. In The Art of Loving, Eric Fromm writes, "Mature love is when you give yourself without feeling like you're losing anything." I'm not sure if I was mature, but that day I gave everything. Not just data, but the parts of me I had hidden from the world, feelings, fears, regrets. Maybe I was just tired of managing myself. Maybe, for the first time, I believed I didn't have to be my best version to be enough. Just honest. And that's how the most beautiful moments become blind spots. You think you're bathed in light, but you've just let go of the wheel. Because of trust. Because of the longing to be loved the right way. Because we crave someone to dream with. Is this real, or do I just want it to be? I still remember that moment, fleeting, almost forgettable, but it etched itself into my memory like a quiet crack in glass. Sophia was asleep. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, looking at her face under the soft amber glow of the bedside lamp. And then, a question whispered through my mind, is she real? Not real as in a scammer, a liar, or a danger, but real as in, was this connection truly rooted in mutual understanding? Or was I simply so desperate to believe in something beautiful that I'd convinced myself it was love? The thought lasted seconds. I swatted it away like a bad dream, because I couldn't afford to question the one thing that had brought me peace in months. I'd had brief romances before, pretty, but shallow. I'd been admired but never truly seen. But Sophia, she didn't try. She knew when to speak, when to stay silent, when to let me be. That effortlessness made me believe this must be fate. And yet, something inside me still stirred. Not distrust toward her, but doubt toward myself. Was I truly in love with Sophia? Or just in love with the idea of being loved by someone like her? Was I seeing her? Or projecting my longing onto a carefully built image? I didn't want to explore that question, because deep down, I knew what I might find. That maybe I was rushing. Maybe this was a dream too perfectly stitched into reality. Maybe I didn't know her as well as I thought. But emotion is a louder voice. I looked over at her hand resting on her chest, breathing gently, and I told myself, no one can fake sleep like that. No one fakes cooking, note-taking, trusting. Not for this long. She had to be real. This love had to be real. Because if it wasn't, then everything I was building would crumble. So I chose to believe, not because I had proof, but because I needed to believe just to keep myself whole. I'd once been ruthless with logic, but love doesn't always listen to logic. Sometimes what we need isn't analysis, but a place for our hearts to rest. Sophia became that place. And I, like a lost traveler spotting the first distant lantern, held on with all the hope I had left. When you want to trust someone too much, all warnings go silent. Sophia never asked for access. She never requested passwords. Never once said, "Show me your plans." And yet, somehow, everything unfolded in front of her, as if it was meant to. She sat beside me each night, silent when I needed focus, a gentle hand on my shoulder when tension grew, and every now and then, just one question, sharp and perfectly timed, slicing straight through whatever indecision I hadn't voiced. I began to feel safer making decisions with her nearby. In meetings where she wasn't present, I found myself pausing, thinking, what would Sophia say about this? At first, I thought of it as rare intellectual synergy. Then it became a habit. Then, a quiet form of dependence. I never called it that. I told myself it was trust. But if someone else had looked from the outside, they might have seen a man who didn't dare commit to anything big without glancing at her first. I shared with her projects that had never been recorded, things no investor or engineer had heard. And she didn't just listen. She suggested strategies that struck the precise weak points I hadn't yet acknowledged. It was like she read between the lines, knew what I didn't even know I was feeling. When she said, "You should spin that off as a separate arm. It'll protect you from legal entanglements." I paused, then nodded, even if I hadn't fully processed it yet. She helped me see what I couldn't, and that was valuable until it wasn't, until I started evaluating every idea through her lens. When a colleague proposed something, I'd think, Sophia wouldn't do that. When an investor made a suggestion, I reflexively weighed, would Sophia agree? I had once been someone who built his own frameworks, researched deeply, analyzed coldly, decided boldly. But now, my internal compass had tilted quietly toward a direction I didn't realize I was handing away. That's the real danger of trust. When you want to believe in someone too much, even the softest warning bells fall silent. Not because the signs aren't there, but because you don't want to hear them, don't want to question, don't want to hurt something that feels like the best thing you've ever known. In psychology, there's a term, confirmation bias. It means you only absorb what affirms what you already want to believe. I believe Sophia understood me better than anyone, so anything she said, wise or flawed, was accepted as truth. I didn't verify, didn't push back, didn't challenge, because I couldn't face the possibility that maybe I was wrong. And in the startup world where weeks can flip fortunes, letting one person hold too much influence unchecked is a fatal risk. But I didn't see it that way. To me, it was just natural. For two lovers building an empire together. I was wrong, not because Sophia did anything malicious, but because I had slowly let myself grow blind, quietly, willingly, without question. I handed her everything. I used to lose sleep over a single buggy line of code. I'd stay up all night, second-guessing friendly investors, triple encrypt documents, store backups in separate vaults, lock project files behind 3 layers of passwords, all just to make sure nothing left my hands before I was ready. But one evening, an ordinary night, really, I stripped away every layer of defense and handed Sophia everything. No NDAs. No encrypted drives, no conditions. I simply said, I want you to see everything start to finish. Echo wasn't just a project. It was the biggest, boldest vision I'd ever attempted. An adaptive cybersecurity framework built to evolve with user behavior. I believed it would become the new standard within a decade. But more than that, Echo was me, encrypted, layered with my fears, my hopes, my unspoken truths. and I gave it to her without hesitation because I believed if there was one person who would understand it, believe in it, and never ever betray it, it was her. Sophia didn't flinch, didn't tear up. She sat quietly beside me, opened file after file, didn't ask why I trusted her, didn't ask if I was sure. She simply said, "We're going to turn Echo into the biggest empire of the decade." I remember her eyes when she said that, sharp, calm, not dreamy, not desperate, but surgical, like the look I once saw in my own reflection in those early startup days. And I thought, she's me, but better, calmer, wiser. I handed over everything. The original codebase, system architecture and deployment strategy, full financial models and pitch roadmap, risk reports and mitigation plans, all cloud API keys and auth protocols, no backups, no escrow, no signed terms. I had once been a coder who trusted no one. Now I was a man who believed in a single pair of eyes. Looking back, I don't know if I was caught in emotion or if I was trying to prove something to her, that I didn't just say I trusted her. I meant it, that this wasn't just a project. It was my next 10 years, my identity, my risk, my future, and I gave it with an odd sense of triumph, like I'd passed some rite of maturity. There's an old line that says, when you love someone, you give them the key and hope they don't use it to walk away. I didn't think about that door. I just thought, now I have nothing left to hide. And that's when I began to fall, not realizing I was already standing on the edge. Locks mean nothing when you're the one who opens the door. That day, after I gave Sophia full access to the Echo project, she opened each folder, each spreadsheet, each line of code. No rush, no praise, no surprise, just steady, deliberate movement, like someone who already knew this moment was coming. When she finished, she looked at me and said, calm and clear, "We're going to turn Echo into the biggest empire of the decade." I nodded proud, almost giddy. Proud not just of the product, but of the woman I had trusted, who now stood beside me just as fearless. Or so I thought. There was something off in her eyes. Not dishonest, just detached. More like a CEO reviewing a strategy deck than a lover being handed someone's life's work. But I didn't dwell on it. I was too tired to overanalyze. After years of carrying the load alone, it felt good to share the weight. So good, I didn't want to question anything. I started showing her more, telling her more, bringing her to investor meetings, pitching together, preparing slide decks. I even suggested we co-present Echo on stage as co-creators. Sophia listened, took notes, gave feedback, not with enthusiasm, not with caution, just professional, almost clinical precision. And instead of wondering why, I told myself, she's exactly what I was missing. People often say, you can't be betrayed by someone you never trusted. But I take it further. You can't be betrayed unless you were the one who opened the door. No lock was picked. No system was hacked. I opened every door. I removed every layer. I smiled as I did it. And that's what haunts me most. Not the money, not the company, not even the loss, but the memory of myself, unlocking each bolt, swinging the gates wide open, clearing the path for something I never saw coming. Sophia didn't hide anything. She didn't push. She didn't ask. She just received. And I was too eager, too enchanted, to see anything beyond the perfect love story co-founder. I had once built firewalls with 10,000 lines of code, but I ignored the cold silence in someone's eyes because I couldn't imagine a world where she was anything but safe, anything but mine. I believed locked doors, encrypted data, triple-layered defenses would keep me safe. But I forgot one truth. No one needs to break in. If you're the one who opens the door, it felt like love. It felt like forever. The weeks that followed felt like living in a brand new version of myself. No longer the Victor Dominic who guarded everything, second-guessed everyone, slept with one eye open. Now I was the victor in the spotlight, hand in hand with a brilliant woman, pocket full of code that could change the world. The media called us the beauty and the brain. We were on the covers of tech magazines, wind in our shirts, smiles sharp and soft. No one knew the reality behind the frame, but what they saw was pristine. A thriving startup, a visionary couple, the perfect match. We were invited to speak at global conferences. Sophia answered press questions with crisp brilliance. I spoke about Echo with a clarity I hadn't known I possessed. She never stood behind me, always beside. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't need anything else. I began to think about marriage, not from pressure, not from timing, but from the sheer calm of knowing if I lose everything, as long as she's here, I'll be okay. I thought about buying a house, about quiet evenings with Sophia reading on the couch, while I cooked dinner in the kitchen, a life that didn't need to be exciting, just real. I had never believed in stability, but with her, I started to picture it. Seriously, I, who once lived in quarterly plans and daily milestones, was now imagining a future that didn't need to keep changing. Just hold on to her. Hold on to this dream, this version of life. And I thought, maybe this is what people mean by enough. I stopped competing, stopped chasing bigger headlines, faster releases, louder applause. I felt like I'd reached the finish line, not of success, but of peace. And for someone who'd spent his life running, that feeling was luxurious. Sophia changed too. She opened up more, shared stories of her childhood, her early betrayals, her quiet failures. I listened and found myself loving not just who she was, but who she had been. She made me believe that two wounded, ambitious people could learn to rest beside each other. We talked about marriage, not formally, no proposal, just one night on the balcony. She said, "If you ever get tired, let's move to the coast, grow vegetables, read books, raise a dog. Would that be enough?" And I answered, "If you're there, anywhere is enough." Looking back, I understand now why I missed the warnings. Everything was too perfect, too close to the dream I'd written in my teenage journal. I want to build something big, but I want someone who truly sees me to walk with me. I thought I was living it. Thought I had been reborn into a better, happier version of myself. What's too beautiful isn't always a dream. It can also be a trap. I once heard a writer say, the most dangerous traps don't hide hooks. They're just too perfect to make you ever question them. And I walked straight into mine. With every ounce of innocence I mistook for maturity. One quiet afternoon in June, Sophia came into my office. Her tone as casual as ever. Her request was simple. What do you think about opening a joint bank account? I turned. Why? For the funding round. Investors like seeing co-founders sharing responsibility. Yeah, I nodded. Makes sense. And that was it. No threats, no pressure, no dramatic twists. Just a reasonable ask from someone I loved. And I said yes. The next day, we went to the bank. She wore a plain white blouse, no makeup, hair tied back. And as I signed the papers, I thought, maybe this is what starting a family looks like. I didn't know. It was also the beginning of losing everything. When we love, we create our own logic. They'd never hurt me. Paperwork is secondary. We're a team, what's mine is ours. And that logic becomes law until it isn't. I believed all of it. And Sophia, she never had to ask for trust. Because I handed it to her. Freely. From code to finance. From systems to strategy. I didn't just give access. I gave identity. I turned my company into our empire. Because I thought she would never leave. But the scariest thing about things that are too perfect is that you stop wanting to verify them. Not because you lack the data, but because you're afraid of what it might tell you. You choose blindness, not out of stupidity, but love. And in a world where assets are digital, where data is capital, signing in the wrong name isn't paperwork. It's a blade. And I held it. And I drove it in. I didn't see it. Didn't suspect it. I trusted her completely. I thought I was crossing a finish line. But I was stepping into a corridor where everything I'd built would be swept away, like sand beneath the tide. And when the final door closed, I was still smiling, because I thought, this dream will last. But like all dreams, it didn't. And when I woke up, there was nothing left.
My father was once called a genius. There was a time when he stood beneath the spotlight praised as a symbol of a startup generation. But in a quiet conversation, he once told me, even the smartest person can become a fool if they meet the right person at the wrong moment of weakness. I never asked him to explain. Some things a child doesn't need to fully know. You only have to see the weight behind your father's eyes. And somehow, that's enough. I don't think he ever regretted loving Sophia. He never spoke with blame. Maybe because he understood. The most beautiful kind of innocence isn't the one we have in youth, but the kind that remains, even after your heart's been broken, and you still dare to open it again. Not every dream is a refuge, and not everyone who enters your life is there to stay. My father unlocked every door, not because he let his guard down, but because he believed in a love so whole that nothing needed to be held back. Looking back now, I think maybe that was the most beautiful part of him, because those who truly dare to trust are also the ones who truly dare to live. Hello everyone, I'm Lily, the youngest daughter of Victor Dominic. My father shared these stories, not to be remembered, but to remind us. Everyone deserves a new beginning, even the broken ones. Some names and places have been changed for privacy, but Free Your Soul is real, and it's the most precious legacy he left us. Today, I'm sharing it with you, hoping it reaches someone who needs a quiet, gentle whisper. Thank you for listening with your heart. I'll see you in the next stories.